Good morning, welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking and this giant mess. I just want to record a quick video this morning because I'm going to be putting a transfer that I sold from a kit onto a backing. And I've had some questions lately about how to put your own design onto a backing in a way that it is very square, professional, usable, and correct. So there is a real science to this. Whether you are using burlap, linen, or monk's cloth, you really need your design to be square onto your backing. And the reason for that is if you can picture, for example, an old needlepoint or something that somebody's worked and not framed or worked properly in the diagonal way so you don't get the bias stretch, you get that weird bias stretch where it wants to pull in one direction. So with rug hooking, it's a little bit different when something is not exactly square. What you get is lines. When you want to do directional lines that are straight, you get lines that are not straight, and it becomes absolutely impossible, no matter how narrow and small the strip is you're working with, or whether you're working with yarn, it will become impossible to keep the straight line of your borders and anything inside of your design that has a rigidness to it, a straightness to it, an angle to it. You will lose that completely if your pattern isn't squared perfectly on your backing. So it's super important to do this. What squaring on your backing means is that, change my glasses here, it follows the lines of your backing. So for example, I've got linen. I'm going to do this backwards to show you. It has lines, right? It has, I don't even know if it's called warp and a weft with fabric, and I should because I have a textile degree, but I don't. But I do know that there's lines, right? Whether you're working with monk's cloth or this. Let me see if I have a monk's cloth around. I always have monk's cloth around. So this is a gridded monk's cloth. Obviously, this has lines too. You need for your border of your pattern to fall exactly on those lines. That is absolutely essential. So this is how you're going to do it. Let me pull back a little bit here. I'm going to work in reverse so you can see this. I'm going to pull out a pattern I've just sold a ton of this month. Let me put it in your direction. And I'm going to get it pretty squared onto the backing. So I need to retrace this one. This is on that Fiba tape, F-I-B-A. It's a little bit sticky on the back. I can get about 20 patterns out of it before I need to retrace it. I'm going to use this, whether you're using Fiba tape, freehanding, if you're just drawing straight onto your canvas, or using red dot, whatever your transfer method is, mesh, anything, you have to have it squared. So it's something like this. You can see I have a square border already. I don't trust that the gridded picture I put on top of it on the Fiba tape, I don't trust at all that it matches the lines of the thing underneath it. No matter what strength glasses I have on, it probably doesn't, and it won't. So what I'm going to do, you can measure it with your ruler. You know, these quilting rulers are amazing for that. You can eyeball it, you can measure it. I can move it over a hair this way. You know, it doesn't have to be rocket surgery. You don't have to turn it into something crazy. Just make sure it's pretty even all the way around. And I can see it's not, but we're about to fix that. That's a little bit tall on top, so I'll pull it down a little bit more. That should be just about there. So the way that I'm going to get from point A to point B with this is I'm going to start by dotting where I want the top to be. And then I'm just going to, in my case here, and again, if you're freehanding it, this part doesn't come in. This is the only part that you care about is, am I getting this straight? And I'm literally from my dot for the border going to draw down the side of the design. I'm not speaking because I'm looking and thinking and I'm being careful. I got my black Sharpie, my indelible Sharpie. I'm drawing right down. I want to see where I need to end the line. That's the thing. So the line is going to end somewhere around here. I'm going to come right down to the edge. And what I'm doing is just, make sure you can see me, following the line. I'm right out of the shot there. And now I'm going to follow it across this way. I'm drawing square onto the line. I'm following that particular fiber right across until I get to the edge of where I need to be again. So I'm going to need to get something here. I know this is my next line. And it might not look like it's going to match up with the top, but it will, because your backing, I've got linen here, your backing is pliable, flexible, it will mutate to fill the space. I'll show you what I mean. So I think we're perfect up here. I'm going to come across with the fourth line. I always like to use a thicker Sharpie. You know, this is my thicker one that I use when I do this kind of thing. And then when I fill in, especially if it's a fiddly design with a lot of lines, I use my regular black Sharpies. I like the industrial Sharpies because I've always been told by Donna at Whispering Hill in Woodstock, Connecticut. I feel like she's the oracle of things. She says always use these. These used to be like the rub-a-dubs, and now they call them industrial, but that they're even more indelible, permanent, non-everything bad than the regular Sharpies. But sometimes if the regular Sharpie is near my hand, I grab that. The thing is to use the black Sharpie. Don't use the colored ones because they could do bad things to you. So now I've got my square here, and I know it's perfectly square because I followed these lines with my eyeballs. I'm not going to trust a pattern. I'm not going to trust my transfer, even though this is 10 by 10. I can only be sure that this is squared on here because I drew it on there by using points. So then I can get my pattern over it. And what's great about this fiber tape is you can kind of stick as you go, and I can get it perfectly squared on there. And you move it and manipulate it underneath until it's perfectly square, the design. And now it is. So now that I know that my design is perfectly squared on the backing, I'm ready to go in and trace it and make it perfect. And this design is, this one's already sold. So I would never, with patterns that I use or patterns that I sell, I would never do anything but this process. If I buy a pattern and I would say God forbid, but it's not that big of a deal, is it? In the grand scheme of things, especially this year, it's not that big of a thing. But if you buy a pattern and it's not exactly square, just be mindful of that. Look at it. If it's an older pattern, no matter what the backing is, it can happen. Some patterns are commercially printed and they don't come out exactly square. Just look at your pattern, whether you're drawing it or you're working it. Look at it before you start putting loops into it. And just make sure it's perfectly square. And if it's not, it's probably pretty close. So get your Sharpie out and just fiddle it until it is perfectly square, because you will 1000% have an issue with the border lines and all of the inside lines if it's not squared to start. So if you feel like it's just one fiber off, just do it. You'll save yourself a lot of aggravation later. It's well worth it. Hope that helps. It's one of the great tips of rug hooking, and it's a pratfall that I've made, I think, once. That was one of the few things in my life I did once that really messed me up, that I learned from. All the others I just did 20 times, or I'm still doing them. See you soon. Have a great day from Ribbon Candy Hooking.